So, Asif, why don't I start with you? Why don't you take the opportunity quickly to introduce yourself for those in the room?
Sure, thank you. Good morning, everyone. As Andrew said, my name is Asif Hassan. I'm one of the co-founder and CEO at Simtech. So to quickly give you kind of an introduction about the company, we believe that energy efficiency and energy retrofit supply chain has to be simple for everybody to afford and navigate through it. Currently, only 20%, top 20% of the population can afford or navigate through this easily. So with our solutions through partnership and collaboration with electric utility companies, energy service providers, we're making it very simple for everyone. So that's kind of a quick blurb about Simtech. Of course, there's a lot we're going to talk today. In terms of green economy, we believe that creates green jobs. It creates an inclusive economy. It not only supports sorry, some interruption. It not only supports creation of green jobs and inclusive economy, but we also believe that it makes the world much more greener and cleaner. That's why it's important to us. I want to expand more and learn more today with the panelists.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Asif. Megan, how about we come over to you?
Sure. My name is Megan Seagrave. I'm the Executive Director of BioMB. For those of you who don't know our organization, we have a mandate to foster the bioeconomy in the province of New Brunswick through leadership and support to increase research, technology development and commercialization around every aspect of the bioeconomy in our resource-based sectors. And really happy to be on this discussion. I wanted to point something out maybe before Amit introduces himself. We've got Murray McLaughlin on this call, and I suspect he'll have some interesting inputs. Murray has received global awards for bioeconomy influencing, so I think it's really interesting that he's here, a maritimer by birth, but not currently living in Atlantic Canada.
It's wonderful. Thank you, Megan, and welcome, Murray. Matt, you're next on my screen. Why don't you give us a quick intro on everything you and Rise are doing?
Sounds good. So again, my name is Matt Daigle, founder and CEO of a company called Rise. You can find us at buildwithrise.com. Thanks for the invite today. And I just wanted to to introduce the company. We've been around for the last 6 years now. Rise is essentially an online platform that helps homeowners have a much more sustainable home. So we offer resources, primarily content, that homeowners can consult and essentially help them make better buying decisions when it comes time to choose products and materials for their new build or renovation at home. And now we've actually just recently launched an online store where we can actually purchase all of these fantastic products and materials that we've been talking about for the last few years. As far as the green economy and maybe why I'm here, for us, it's kind of been built into the DNA of the company that we've started. But to me, the green economy is it's table stakes as part of today's economy. And in hindsight, we probably should have been, it probably should have been built in from the very beginning. So I'm very happy to be here today and chat with you guys.
Matt, I appreciate that. Amit, why don't you walk us through everything you and your team at Navico are up to?
Good morning, everyone. Amit Fermani of Navico Power. We've been keeping ourselves quite busy working in the renewable energy space, and I'm looking forward to having a great discussion with everyone here on the video call today. Our focus has been on trying to provide, especially within the local area, renewable energy solutions that are a no money down type of solution for homeowners as well as for business owners to help reduce their costs when it comes to energy consumption, as well as in the space of with energy efficiency to reduce their overall costs by going ahead and looking at the energy pyramid and seeing where we could start with the reduction of energy first, moving through to the production of energy on site. So for us, it's not just a matter of being a player on the green economy, rather it is the economy. It's become de facto at this point in time, as far as I'm concerned, that this is now considered to be renewable energy, energy efficiency as one of the fastest growing places for jobs in the Canadian economy. It is the economy, and we should be branding it as such and no longer needing to use those monikers, but talking about it for what it is, which is a big driver of jobs and wealth in this country, along with the benefits of carbon reduction.
That's great. Thank you for that introduction. That's our panel today, and I'm looking forward to all of their insight and opinions on this topic. So for anybody who, and I'm actually one last reminder, if you do have questions throughout, feel free to throw it in the chat box at any point, and when the opportunity presents itself, I will ask the questions. So don't worry about timing, just throw it in the chat room and I'll get to it as soon as I can. But for anybody who's not familiar, Ignite Fredericton has a podcast, and I had the opportunity to interview Asif. And it started as a discussion. I want to know everything he has been up to. And that turned into another episode where we interviewed his team, and we talked a lot about green economy. So here we are. So the reason, so my first question actually goes to Asif. So like I mentioned, you joined me a few weeks ago to talk about green economy. But for those of you who didn't get the opportunity to hear everything, all of your input on it, why is this so important to you and the Fredericton region?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, Amit, like I'm going to resonate some of the key things that you highlighted. It is the economy, right? So it's the forefront of the Canadian economy right now. So I just want to open up by saying that. And in fact, if we look into it, green economy is actually, as we all address, like it's creating lots of green jobs. It's creating a lot of inclusive economy for everyone to be accommodated, creating making people save electricity and bringing a lot of different technologies. But more importantly, if we look into the policies and alignment for different governments, these are all aligning together right now. Everybody knows that this is important. This has to be taken care of. So to me, it's a no-brainer and an opportunity for Fredericton to take the leadership role. So if everything is aligned, whether it's federal government, provincial, or municipalities, why won't Fredericton take that opportunity to take some sort of a leadership role and then start to kind of amplify the voices of individual organizations that are working in green economy? So that's number one. I would say it's more like an opportunity for us to highlight our province, our city, and all the things that we do. And if I jump into more about some of the podcasts and discussions that we had, I mentioned that green economy incorporates collaboration. So what I mean by that is, like, it's not just Simtech who wants to increase the energy efficiency supply chain by itself. Like, we're not the only one who's going to do it. We require collaboration, we require partnership. We're already in discussion with Matt, Amit, and then we're exploring with a lot of regional vendors, like, how can we create a consortium to make a larger impact? Because individually we're doing our part, but how can we amplify our voice and then make our voice stronger? So once again, it's an opportunity for Fredericton to take the leadership role. And that's why I believe that this is important. And also, I want to add, like, again, I talk about a lot about the green jobs because this involves high-skilled workers, right? So it's more than 75% of our workforce at Simtech. All the jobs that we have created, these are high-quality, high-skilled workers, data scientists, and developers, and they're, in fact, global talents that we're bringing into Fredericton. So how amazing it is to actually work on an economy which nurtures this kind of talents and then actually creates attraction to the global economy and then bring Fredericton at the center of innovation and entrepreneurship and everything, right? So I'm using a lot of words. This all incorporates within economy, within this green economy. So I think it's important. It's an opportunity for all of us, and this is the time. So that's number one, I would say. And I want to explore with all other partners that we have right now in this panel and then learn more from them as well.
Well, and as we discussed prior, the term green economy is a very, very large term, as you touched upon. But Amit, I wanted to go back to you because Asif just talked a bit about it. But we talked a lot about green economy in the Fredericton region, but how we work with our partners in the area of making it a reality. I want your take on this. How do you see us in the region moving forward in these areas?
Goodness. partnerships are very important, especially for raising that consciousness of the importance of energy efficiency and renewables. I noticed there's still an issue in that talk when it comes to understanding the true impacts of energy or energy consumption. For a lot of people, it's still a very nebulous concept talking about energy with respect to what is the true cost of energy and the true cost of energy efficiency, or the net benefit of energy efficiency, I should say. And partnerships are key in helping spreading that message, because we do have policy incentives that exist through partners such as the federal and provincial government, through other levels of government. You'll notice some of the great things that are being done even at municipal government levels in Nova Scotia with community solar gardens, or other initiatives such as in Halifax with the Solar City initiative that they have to increase the adoption of renewables. But that's on the policy side with respect to providing some sort of subsidy, reduced costs. What isn't being discussed nearly as much right now, and is important for partners to be discussing, is what is the real cost for the generation side or for the consumption of this. So if the rate of energy is being subsidized as a status quo, then it's hard for people to understand, why should I be using other policy incentives to switch over to lower energy consuming means, be it new lighting, greater insulation, or adding a solar to their rooftop, because they're going to be comparing it against the sticker rate that they see for their cost of energy, not what the true cost actually is for a utility or for some other means of generation. So partnerships are very key, working with groups such as like the Conservation Council, with the Clean Foundation, with folks like, Matt, and with Asif, and even with Megan's group, and discussing exactly that, about what is energy, what is really the cost factors that drive that, and to help people better understand, how there are great savings by moving forward with energy efficiency.
That's great. Thank you for that. I want to turn it over to Megan. Megan, there are two angles we can look at this: business growth and investment attraction. As a province, should we be focused on inward investment on sustainable companies and those that have a carbon play, or should we focus more on supporting the greening of our own local, already existing SMEs? What's your take on that?
I think we need to look at both if we're going to consider, as Amit said, this is about the economy. This isn't just about the green economy, it's the economy. You could reference David Campbell's podcasts and his blogs. It's the economy, stupid. We need to take the initiative here in New Brunswick, Atlantic Canada, and Canada from an inward investment play to attract companies here. And frankly, we have brilliant assets. We have an abundance of riches in terms of our resource sectors, brownfield sites, greenfield sites. We've got knowledgeable, highly qualified professionals. So we've got the opportunity to attract, and then we need to be able to take all of those skilled and knowledgeable individuals and have them impact existing businesses on the ground here to increase their competitiveness and their productivity. And they can do that through new technologies like what Asif is doing. And then the subsidies that Amit talked about, they're just mechanisms, and they're traditional mechanisms that we have put into play from a North American perspective, just to be able to build up the infrastructure around and to educate and build some knowledge around some of these new opportunities and new technologies. But back to your question, it's both. We should be looking at this as an opportunity for inward investment, as well as an opportunity to increase the competitiveness and the productivity of companies currently on the ground.
Excellent. Thank you. Matt, I wanted to turn it over to you so you have the opportunity. And personally, and maybe it's just me with this stuff, but when it comes to green tech and the green economy, it often gets associated with the future. We're often hearing years such as 2050 and 2060 and things of that matter. Which sectors of the economy, in your opinion, are already in transformation? Do you have any examples of things you and your business are doing? And just to unmute yourself, Matt.
Yeah, thank you.
Had to be said once, so.
You're right. Yeah, it's a great question. I think just hearing from the folks on the panel today, it does sound a little bit like we're very focused on one piece of what you would call the economy or the green economy. And I think it's probably important to highlight that there's like a variety of pieces here at play. So it is renewable energy. It is the buildings that we live in and operate. It's transportation. It's water, waste, and land management. These are all things that are part of the green economy. And I think maybe the last few aren't so well represented on this panel, but also very important. And to be honest, to answer your question, all of them are being worked on. This is, like you said, it is the future. And obviously for that reason, it's super important that there's a variety of problems I think that we've kind of created for ourselves in the last few decades, unfortunately, and the way that we conduct business. And now it's caused a focus towards emerging technologies that are going to help things like climate change. So for that reason, it's an exciting time. But as I mentioned earlier, it would have been great to have done this from the beginning and just sort of build it into the DNA of everything that we do. So if you are starting a business today, it'd be great if you could tackle one of those areas that are so key to our economy and our future as a planet. And as far as what we do at our company and to help address that, we actually touch on a variety of these sectors, whether from obviously from the home improvement side. We focus specifically on residential. Typically, a single family detached home is kind of where we play. But any building out there is key to this. It's a huge part of the reason why we have climate change. And so we also touch on renewable energy, water and waste management, and a little bit on land management. So for us, it's kind of just been built into the DNA of what we do as a company in helping homeowners have a more sustainable home for the future.
That's great. Thank you, Matt. Sif, I want to go back to you. We find sometimes New Brunswick gets stereotyped into, in Maritimes in general, I would argue, but get stereotyped into images of simple fishers, foresters, farmers, that type of thing. But what those out of our province often miss is that we are high-tech foresters using data analytics to predict and mitigate disease. We are high-tech agriculture working on sustainable genomics. We are high-tech fishers using AI to mitigate right whale collisions. Sif, what do we need to do to shake this image?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. So that incorporates actually what Matt, you just mentioned. So absolutely, there's so much within green economy that maybe it's not completely represented with this panel. And there are a lot of thought leaders out there, organizations who are actually tackling each one of these domains, whether it's fisheries or biogas. We have Amir right here, or in different fields, transportation, or individuals like us who are working in renewables and promoting energy efficiency and sustainability. So altogether, I think what I would say first is just to connect this question, Andrew, and to expand on what Matt mentioned. I think the key here is transition to a lower carbon economy. I think that's what it is about. We have a tremendous aggressive, I would say, greenhouse reduction target, and it is a must. Transition to a lower carbon economy is a must. Right. So in order to get out there, we heard by now that we need collaboration. We need a lot of different discussions to bring this at the forefront because the policies are not going to work by itself. So connecting to the representation. So when we actually look at our province or let's say Atlantic Canada, we think of what you're saying. We already have a lot of amazing businesses that are growing, but doing that traditionally is not just the only way. Today, a lot of things are happening. For example, in our industry, we're bringing digital transformation into the energy retrofit supply chain. So for example, to give a kind of a quick thing, traditionally, if you think of energy audit, it comes to your mind, okay, somebody's going to walk into your home and then do a lot of like a walkthrough, take a lot of pictures, and then takes 3 months to create a report that tells you what to do. But as a consumer, whether you're a business owner or a homeowner, all that you need is actually that last page that tells you what to do. So consumers are asking, tell me the benefits so that I can work more. So traditionally, if you do that with a human oriented, like, just a service component that comes into making all this happen, it's not always done efficiently. So we brought a digital transformation into the energy efficiency supply chain. We brought a virtual energy audit component where you can do exactly the same thing, like, bringing that benefit, that one page that tells you what to do, almost at a so almost at a 70 to 80% accuracy that you can actually make that happen using digital and AI, artificial intelligence systems. So that's what we do. So we're doing it right from here in New Brunswick, right? But not always this gets translated to the rest of the world, that this kind of technology advancements are happening right from our backyard. So like, for example, I know Matt Diggle has also a lot of solutions, like, they're hiring high-skilled workers. And we have a lot of companies here actually who are working into artificial intelligence and blockchain technologies and some of the state-of-the-art technologies in the region. So I think it's time for us to, again, going back to this word, collaboration and through partnership, we need to amplify our voice together to represent New Brunswick as that center for this kind of innovation beyond the traditional businesses. Those are great happening, but I think we're bringing a whole new layer, and it's going to represent New Brunswick really amazingly.
Megan, I saw you nodding your head. Why don't you give us your take on that, those comments and that question?
Sure. So you brought up a couple of great examples, and I think that creates a really a really nice foundation. Technology creation, adoption, at least within Atlantic Canada, I think better needs to align with our assets, our resource-based sectors, and we will see technology and innovation transform those resource-based sectors. So that's going to help our GDP. That's going to make us experts from a tech perspective, a tech development perspective, and a technology adoption perspective. So if we translate that into the exportation of that knowledge and of those technologies, it's growing our economy. New Brunswick is a phenomenal sandbox given the resource sectors that we have. We've got agriculture, fisheries, forestry. Those are the foundation of our GDP here in this province, and frankly in Atlantic Canada, if we take oil and gas and kind of put it aside. So all of the technologies that we are developing here, if we did a better job of focusing and aligning, Asif used the word align probably 20 times in the last 5 minutes, and Amit mentioned it too, alignment. So let's do a better job of aligning our early stage technology-based companies and our focus around the assets that we have here to build the real economy and to take advantage of what we've got. So, yeah.
Andrew, I just wanted to add something a little bit on that. So yeah, absolutely. Like, the things, I just want to make sure that we're not talking about technology replacing the traditional businesses. We're talking about bringing an extra layer to enhance how they do things today, to do it much more better. So whether it's any industry, transportation, energy audit industry, or let's say like, renewables or anywhere, I think lots of things are happening right here in the province. So I think it's time for us to actually take that and then put it on top of the traditional businesses and demonstrate that Atlantic Canada can do more than actually what it is today.
And let's continue that a bit here. Amit, I'm going to go to you on what do you, and everything that's been said so far, what do you think are the biggest barriers to growing a green economy, both local and global?
Just like with anything else in business, your biggest barrier is the ease in which a transaction happens. So we've got great programs that are coming out, as an example here in Canada, with respect to the Canada Greener Homes Grant. But I personally went through the process of going onto the website, seeing how difficult is this process going to be, or how easy, hopefully, it will be. Focus on the easy, right? That to get the $5,000 as a grant for doing a home energy retrofit and the $600 for hiring an energy advisor. I found out through that process, first I have to go to a government website. Then I need to be able to sign onto this government website with something known as GC key, either by going through my bank account or providing a SIN number or something else. Then on top of that, I have to go ahead and find out what is my home address. Okay, I know where I live, but do I know what my tax identification number is for that property? Do I know the actual square footage of my property? All right. Then you go through that process of, after inputting all that data, of having a choice of one of 3 energy advisors being able to reach out to you for the whole province of New Brunswick. There are only 3 people that are available. And oh, wait, we'll call you is what it says on top of that. So it's all about that ease of a transaction. We've got great programs that are coming out to support that. But what good is a great program if someone is not able to take up the use of that program for whatever means? So similarly enough, we've seen in the US and other parts of Canada, PACE legislation as being a great way for allowing homeowners and business owners to move forward with financing energy retrofits and renewable energy projects. And that's something that's still not done here in the province, but ought to be done, is that ability to just add on to your tax bill, your financing portion, and facilitate those retrofits to happen. So it's small things like that that make transactions easier. And that's why our focus has been on trying to provide a leasing model for any renewables that someone wishes to install, solar for their building or for their home, or same with what we're trying to slowly move into with home insulation as well, potentially in the near future, and financing those types of energy efficiency retrofits as well, because we're trying to reduce the steps that are necessary that go into completing that transaction. And it ties in great into like what Asif has been doing with, the virtual energy assessments that he's speaking about, and what Matt's done is making a marketplace for people to go to find out what are those options. So be it locally or globally, it's facilitating the ease of a transaction.
Okay, thank you for that, Amit. My next question, I want to go back to Matt. And Matt, I'm like halfway through a book right now. I think it was released in November, but it's called Post Corona. It's by Scott Galloway. But one of the things he emphasizes, and I'm sure everyone here has heard it many times, is that, and he says that the pandemic has not been a change agent so much as an accelerant of trends already well underway. And so my question for you is, what role has COVID-19 played in accelerating the green economy?
Yeah, another great question, and I'm sure everybody has a different take on this. But my take on it is that, well, we're spending a lot of time at home, a lot more time than what we used to, and obviously things like travel budgets that we, as homeowners, we had allocated for ourselves are now being, we're spending that time indoors. So we're thinking, oh, what changes could I make to my environment to have a better home, feel more comfortable. A lot of the talk in the home improvement space has also shifted into things like health. Making sure with everything that COVID brought, there was a lot of questions around like, well, is my home the healthiest, from things like finishes to just the indoor air quality. Do I have an air exchanger in my house? All kinds of new questions that folks maybe didn't have before. So, for the last probably the last 5 years now, we've noticed a trend specifically in the home improvement space, is that homeowners are now more than ever taking real accountability over what goes into their home. And so for that, they do a lot of research. They want to know, and they want to be part of the decision-making process. And this idea of just going to a builder or a contractor and saying like, hey, build me this, and then kind of letting go, that's not super relevant anymore for the average homeowner. Like, the average homeowner actually wants to make sure that they're picking the right things for their house and for their families, so that it benefits their health, so that it benefits their pocketbook, and for a lot of folks, their ecological footprint and the impact that they're having on the environment by doing all of these things. So I think COVID has, like you said, expedited a lot of this talk. It's kind of shifted a lot of the what's really important at the end of the day, thankfully for the construction sector, as I think everybody's kind of witnessed, both the construction and the real estate sector have just seen this massive boom. It's extremely hard to find trades right now, extremely hard to find materials. So everybody's kind of hopping on that bandwagon at the moment, and likely over the next few months, there'll be maybe hopefully an easing of that. But it's really, really exciting to see that sort of push happening, at least in the home improvement space.
And that's a great angle to look at it, Matt. Often when we think about the acceleration of industries, we're thinking bigger scale, but it's actually impacting our individual homes, like you mentioned. So appreciate that answer. My next question is for Megan. Megan, Asif talked a bit about government aligning and whatnot. And in the latest budget by the federal government, they committed over $100 billion in new spending over 3 years to fuel the recovery and kickstart the transition to a green economy. Do you see this support as becoming more common in future budgets across different governments, not just federal?
I think so. I feel like all future programming is going to end up being conditional on proponents, so applicants being able to meet either carbon targets or be able to demonstrate some sort of carbon reduction, either as part of their, whether it's innovation programming or whether it's infrastructure programming that the provinces are trying to attract or make use of. I think it's going to factor into all of that, not dissimilarly to the way that we are now starting to see, without getting too far off topic, First Nations engagement around things like our resource sectors and opportunities there. It's going to be a requirement moving forward, regardless of whether it's provincial or federal programming. And if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to add a little bit to Matt's comments about how COVID has impacted the greening economy. And I think seeing the global reduction in greenhouse gas emissions that happened when flights were grounded, when people stopped traveling, when they were stuck staying in their homes. That, I think, was an eye-opening event. Maybe it took 6 to 12 months for folks to realize it. And then the feds jumping on board with regards to their carbon reduction targets just ended up being kind of a brilliant one too. And here in New Brunswick, we've got an abundance of riches, but I think it was also an eye-opener to folks to realize that we only grow 4% of the food we consume in this province. We have a ton of agricultural arable land, and we grow 4% of what we consume. So there's a bit of a hurdle there. Food security, healthcare, understanding the assets that we have in our backyard. Record profits for forestry companies over the last year and a bit. Matt talked about the construction boom and folks renovating and taking advantage of the fact that they are doing more from their homes. I think that all kind of aligns well with folks better understanding carbon reductions, better understanding emissions and how it's going to impact our lives moving forward.
Wonderful. Thank you for that, Megan. My next question is for Amit. I think one aspect that often gets overlooked and I asked this question with Asif on the podcast, but one aspect that often gets overlooked when discussing sustainability, green tech, and all of these subjects is actual jobs. Surprisingly, I know when I speak with some people, they assume there's little job growth. What's your take on this? This is for Amit.
Right now, we're actually onboarding a new hire here in our Fredericton office. So we brought on a new business development associate. So there is a ton of job growth in this space. And I think that's just evidence to that, is that I've been adding more staff, even though we're still in the midst of a pandemic and reeling from that, to our core team here in the Fredericton office, and we're building out a satellite office right now in India to support the team here in Canada at this very moment. There is massive, massive job growth that's about to happen in this sector, and it's already happening. Jobs involved in the energy efficiency, renewable energy sector, I believe, are greater when it comes to as a overall impact on Canadian GDP than the oil and gas sector in terms of number of jobs, than forestry, than mining, than fishing combined. So we're continually seeing a massive growth in this sector right now, especially with the amount of funding that is going into climate change, be it here in Canada, in the US, or the increased interest in a number of other nations across the world in reducing their energy costs. There is great growth that is happening in means to reduce energy consumption and to increase energy efficiency. Even in a low-cost province for energy such as New Brunswick, compared to many other parts of Canada, or looking at the US and other jurisdictions across the world, solar still makes economic sense here. It's still a case of it's making economic sense, not just off of a home that's off-grid and maybe burning diesel or propane, but it makes sense versus even present-day utility costs. So I think more and more people are going to be switching and wanting to reduce their costs for be it operating their business or running their own household. And we're going to continue to see more growth over the next 5 to 10 years.
That's great. Thank you, Amit. And I feel like after your first sentence of just saying you hired somebody, we probably, if you had a mic, you probably would have dropped it by then. But I appreciate the long answer going to the detail. I think it's more fitting for the discussion. Next question, I actually want to go back to Megan, and I want to talk about government collaboration and how, we talked about government collaboration, but how important is cross-sectoral collaboration in pushing this green economy?
It's huge. I think, back to a couple of points that all of your panelists have made around alignment. We need to do a much better job of taking down the silos. Unfortunately, within this province and within this country, we bucket and silo things. We talk about IT as a sector. IT is not a sector. IT is platform technologies used to innovate, build, and increase competitiveness and productivity of other sectors. If we did a much better job of doing more of that collaboration within our own bucketed silos, and then did a better job of collaboration between the provinces and the feds to allow that innovation to happen, I think we would be much better off. Things, you mentioned in one of your comments with Asif, you talked about, data science, and you talked about AI. These technologies are put in place to help support predictive modeling and to be able to help companies like forestry companies make better business decisions. They're leveraged by companies in our aquaculture sector to allow them to monitor ecosystems for bio-based fouling that happens to ensure that we have sustainable fisheries and aquaculture. It's all about taking things out of the buckets, better aligning, putting them together, and provincially and federally, we need to do that too. You talked about the $100 billion coming down federally in the budget. It's coming down in siloed individual departments, which is unfortunate. And it means that as proponents or groups who are looking to access that monies, they need to be creative and think of, have I got a technology for a forestry-based company or an ag-based company or a fisheries-based company, as opposed to saying, I've got a great technology that can be used for a multitude of things. So I think I probably got a little bit off topic there.
I think that's a great point you mentioned, though, with the funding going into silos. So it goes to the question about cross-sectoral. Let's keep going with that question, because Asif, I saw you nodding a lot. Do you have a take on that question about cross-sectoral collaboration?
I do actually, and thanks for all the feedback that you gave, because as Andrew keeps mentioning, I already talked a lot about green economy in past 2 podcasts. I wanted to hear from all of you. So what I heard, it actually resonating to the entire industry right now. So Matt, you talked about user-centric solution, right? At the edge of the grid, customers are making the decision. They're telling that I need more choices, right? And because of COVID, they started to be much more conscious, because they're spending way more time onto their how do I say, the well-being of how they use electricity, how they find accommodation, comfort, and everything. And on the other end, Amit, you mentioned about how tough it is to navigate through all this funding and policies. Policies are there. Right, fundings are there, whether it's federal, provincial, or municipal level. We have so much money floating around to actually support what we're talking about here. So then connecting that to Megan, what you mentioned here, I think the lack here is actually that collaboration piece to align everybody together to say, how can we not be on our silos? We're doing our part, but how can we bring all of this together and create a larger impact? So I absolutely agree. I think we need to take some leadership role here to bring all these partners and governments and policies, everything together, and then say, you know what, if this is all aligned, the opportunity is right there, why can't we do this, right? So specifically, if I say New Brunswick, why can't we lead the green discussion for the entire country? I know Canada wants to make that happen. We have a tremendous and aggressive target to reduce greenhouse gas. So why can't we make that innovation hub right here in New Brunswick? So I think this is an opportunity. I think Megan, with the organizations and governments and other leaders that we have in the region, I think we need to come together and say, this is a priority. You set it up. We believe in it. Customers want it. So what else do we need, right? To make this happen in a better way. So yeah, Megan, you raised your hand, I guess.
Yeah, I totally, I keep wanting to jump in every time you guys say something. I'm like, oh yeah, there's this, and oh yeah, there's this. There's this really interesting initiative that is starting to get adopted within North America. It already exists within Europe, and it's called it's a global designation called BDO zones. They're bioeconomy development opportunity zones, which are designations that are leveraged by regions. And I think New Brunswick actually as a region would make a brilliant case for this. The regions who understand their assets and the opportunities that those assets represent to carbon, climate change, greening. And it's all about telling the rest of the world that you're a sandbox and you're open for business from a carbon perspective, from a climate change perspective, and you have an understanding about what you've got in terms of boots on the ground, the innovative technologies, you're willing to put new policies in play and act as that sort of attraction for inward investment and technology growth. And I think that that's something that New Brunswick could easily take a look at and become a BDO zone, a green BDO zone for the globe, and use that as a flag to wave around this whole greening economy.
Thank you for that, Megan, and Asif as well. Moving forward with this theme, collaboration and whatnot, my next question is for Matt. Matt, how do you see, in addition to everything that's been discussed already, but how do you see the Fredericton region working collaboratively right now to promote a green economy?
Yeah, so I think it actually starts by doing things like we're doing right this minute. I think we do need a bit more leadership on this topic. And for, I think at the end of the day, we're a very small province. We're about the size of a large city, kind of spread out. And that said, we're small and we're nimble. And sometimes I think we tend to get in our own way. And we might act like we're much bigger than we are when we're not. And we have, that's a huge advantage for us. And I think, we've proven time and time again. And Fredericton being kind of at the forefront of a lot of this is that we have a world-class city here that especially over the last few years, that we've shown time and time again that people are attracted to this place. And it's obviously a great sandbox for collaboration. So, and we also can't forget with I think with COVID too, a lot of folks have now gravitated back towards New Brunswick. So we've got to take advantage of all that talent that's coming. That's kind of shifting. I know a few years ago, the tides were turned the other way, where we're actually losing people every year. Well, this year we're going to see a nice gain in population, and we need to absolutely take advantage of that. But just to go back to your question, not being afraid to partner where we can, getting support from government orgs to for those types of collaboration events, and again, leadership, so holding more of these types of meetings, these letting people know that, we're a force to be reckoned with, and this is the future. And, we got to put some marketing behind it.
Thanks for that, Matt. Now, I have a question from the chat box, or the audience. So this is open floor. Anybody who has an opinion, a take, anything like that. But this question is about using hydro rates and how they would allow us to shift load demand and allow earth storage, thermal storage, heating operate at reduced cost. The question is, why do we not have peak hydro here in New Brunswick? This is currently available in Nova Scotia and Ontario. Does anybody have a take or an opinion on that?
I wouldn't mind taking that on.
It's all yours.
In both jurisdictions, you'll notice that the rates for electricity for homeowners are significantly greater than they are in New Brunswick. I believe it's around 15 cents right now per kilowatt hour in Nova Scotia is the rate, and it's around a similar rate, if not higher, for the peak time of use rates in many jurisdictions in Ontario. When Ontario looked at going to time of use, I believe there was a lot of study that was done on that, and it was ideally said that your peak rate versus your off-peak rate needs to have a differential of about 3 to 4 times. And where in the case of New Brunswick, we're already barely charging homeowners the actual cost of generation, if not a little bit less than what it actually costs us to generate and distribute electricity. For us to go to off-peak rates with the present rate structure is not going to be feasible. We would need some political will, as well as some, what should I say, business will from within a utility as well, with respect to looking at rates being increased here in the province and more reflective of what the actual cost of generation is, for us to have enough of a differential where we could bring in off-peak rates. Not to say it's a bad idea. It's a great idea to have on-peak and off-peak rates and to go ahead and incentivize people to change their consumption habits. It's just there are a few other factors in play that need to change here provincially before that can be adopted, and adopted in a way that will be beneficial for the ratepayer as well as for the utility, who is currently saddled with a ton of debt.
You mentioned they'll have to go through the EUB at the same time, right? Like that's a massive process.
That's correct. But the EUB would be open to any type of innovation and change, so long as you can show the net benefit to the ratepayer at the end of the day.
And just to add to that, I mean, really, you explained it really nicely. And I think the opportunity is ahead, so consumers want to make that decision on their own. But previously there was not enough data for consumers to make that choice. So with the new deployment of smart meters, consumers would have more information how they use their electricity and at what time actually they can reduce if they have given a choice. I think that will create a necessity to create different rate structure in future or not. But yeah, really nice say, Amit, what you mentioned there.
Going back to what you're bringing up, Asif, that's if the utility is willing to share data. And that can also be an issue with the monopoly, is if they're not taking on initiatives such as green button data access, or providing that data to the end homeowner or to a commercial consumer who's interested in having access to that data, we're not going to be able to have those innovations. If they're just going to hold on to it and not subscribe to principles that the Government of Canada and Government of New Brunswick have of open data, or providing access to that data when it's requested by consumer, then we're not going to see that change. But I agree with you, smart meters are definitely going to help in that respect if the data is shared.
You're absolutely, I mean, that's what we fight for. That's what we actually even educate the industry, because what you just mentioned, we need more accessibility to this data, and then actually be able to mine it to bring benefit to the end client. If the end client can get benefit, nobody should hold on to this data, right? So like right here, we have so many companies who can utilize this data and then make it available with a bunch of recommendations for consumers to save electricity. Why wouldn't we do that, right? So that's a challenge. You're absolutely right.
I think thanks for all that feedback, everybody, to the entire panel. This is where the fun begins. But I think we have roughly maybe time for one more question, depending on how the timing goes. And I have an interesting question that is not necessarily directly on green economy, more on entrepreneurship and the entrepreneurial journey. But it'd be interesting to ask all of you who are entrepreneurs in the green economy. But the comment / question is great to see so many entrepreneurs in the room. How did you find your first customer, and how are you scaling your business? Is there anything you would do differently reflecting your early days? So that's an open floor question if everyone has a take on that one.
That's a good question. I can just quickly say one thing. So that's a great question, by the way, if you're pursuing your entrepreneurship journey. So a number one thing that I would say, it is never about us. It's about the customers. So from day one, try to understand what problem you're solving for the end client, not about like how you solve the problem. You think how it is cool, the technology, solutions, and everything. So stop thinking and giving more time to yourself and start to understand what the end client really wants. Trust me, that's how you land into the first customer. Because if you know them well and you become a trusted advisor to your end client, it automatically creates an opportunity, because now you're talking, you're creating solutions together and building opportunities. So that's my take on this.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go against what you just said, Asif. Just based on my experience, I actually set out to solve my own problem, so I was actually my first customer, and I think that's a bit of I think that's something I've seen in many startups over the years, is that if you seek out a problem that's so important for you to solve that you're going to do anything, no matter what, you're going to fall in love with the problem, and not really with the solution, but as long as you fall in love with the problem, and if that problem is very personal to you and what you've experienced or some issue that you had or whatever it is you're trying to solve, I think that gives someone a lot of passion and a lot of willingness to pursue, and a lot of tenacity, which is what you need. Perseverance is the name of the game when it comes to entrepreneurship. So that's just my personal experience, but hopefully that's helpful.
I can sense the tension in the room already.
Yeah.
Amit, I just saw you on mute. Did you have a take on this?
I was just going to say quickly that if I were to do it again, I would hire slower and fire faster.
Anybody? I was going to follow up with the last part of that question is, what would you do differently if you could?
Yeah, maybe this is just me, but our company started as myself as the solo founder, and I think that's a tough go. If you can get yourself a co-founder or two, do it. So I know a few folks in the room that and as if you'd be one of them, that you found co-founders early, and that's so key. So I think I spent my first couple of years really spending a lot of time doing things that I know that a co-founder could have taken on and would have been a good sounding board. And but that's my number one regret, is that I didn't have a co-founder from day one.
Heard that on several fronts. One from an entrepreneur who had sold a couple companies, and one of his most stressful times was just doing it alone the first time. And if he could go back, he would get a co-founder. So it's an interesting take. We have time for one last comment. It's if you're back.
Yes, I am. I got stuck, right? So I meant to say, I will resonate what Matt said, and then the topic to today's, connecting to this topic. I think as entrepreneurs, sometimes we think that we have to solve everything by ourselves. right? So when I started the journey, little that I knew about business or anything about all these things that we're talking about, I had that inward pressure that I have to figure everything by myself. So that's wrong. Our job is to augment ourselves with necessary expertise, partners, like thought leaders, like everybody here, to start to listen to them and then try to take what matters to you and actually start to take the course of action that actually helps you to grow. So I think that's one of the key things I would do differently, not feel that pressure that I have to figure out everything. I think I would do differently by saying that, you know what, I have to connect myself with the right people who believes in the trailer of the movie that I'm creating, so that together we can create the real movie. So that's what I would say.
That's great, Asif. That is our time. I know there's a couple questions I may not have gotten to. If anybody who has even questions you didn't even get the chance to put in the chat box, my email is andrew.lockhart@ignitefredericton.com. Email me and I will forward those questions to the panel. I truly appreciate your time today to talk about this subject. I feel like this is a subject we will be continuing this conversation in the future. And to everybody in the room, I appreciate you joining us for this discussion. Like I said, any questions or anything like that, again, feel free to email me, andrew.lockhart@ignitefredericton.com. Thank you, everybody, for joining today.